Hello, welcome to our Thursday evening workshop. If we can have it quiet in the council chambers, thank you very much. And thank you both for joining us here. If you can both introduce yourselves and then please take it away.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. Heather Hunter, City Administrator of the City of Lewiston.
Tracy Roy, Finance Director for City of Lewiston. Tonight we're going to be starting off with the nonprofit. You received on Tuesday from Heather a couple pieces of paper. First one says cash requests for fiscal year 24. That is for the nonprofits, totaling $29,635. There's $1,000 from Androscoggin Home Health and Hospice, $1,000 for Commit to Get Fit Challenge, $12,500 from Liberty Festival. $10,000 of that is already in your budget. $2,135 from Maine Veterans Memorial Cemetery, $1,000 from Rally for Recovery, $10,000 for Summer Fun and Film Outdoor Movie Nights, and $2,000 for the Light Flight Foundation. Any questions on the nonprofit?
Councilor Harriman?
Thank you. So are any of these new, or have we been doing these for a while?
They may be repeat requests, but as far as funding, the only one that has been funded before other than the Liberty Fest is the Rally for Recovery.
Okay, so all the other ones are, even the Summer Fun and Films, we haven't funded that before?
No.
Okay.
They have their own nonprofit, so they get donations and stuff like that. So no, we have not funded, trying to think of Commit to Get Fit. No, I don't think there's any of them that we've funded in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor McCarthy, did you have something?
I was asking the same question.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right, yeah. Councilor Scott.
Thank you. So the fireworks budget, that's not something we've done in the past. We did the other part, right?
So I said, other than the fireworks,
Other
we've
than
done.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Yes.
Okay.
So just to clarify, though, the fireworks we've done at 10,000. They are requesting 12,500.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
good call.
And the Life Flight Foundation, what is that exactly for that? When it says there are 49 Lewiston residents transported in 2022, is that to pay for transportation for patients in Lewiston to?
They do. Some of the time it's gratuitous, and then other times they have. That was part of the whole packet that we emailed you.
Yep.
But they do various flights down to Boston, with ill people or medical attention, and so they have always kind of asked all the area communities, based upon population, if they would be willing to donate. They do fundraising as well. I'm assuming they get insurance proceeds as well, so.
Okay, with as much money as the hospital makes, I'm sorry, I just think that that's kind of, it is separate from the hospital completely?
Yes, it's a standalone organization.
If I may, I think Life Flight is a joint operation between Eastern Maine and Central Maine hospitals.
Okay.
And I think they're just, if I may, I just think that they're saying that Lewiston residents are using the service. They're making the claim that it's benefiting Lewiston residents.
All right, thank you.
Anything further, Councilor Scott?
No, thank you.
Councilor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On these dollar amounts, are those they request, or are they set fees or set numbers?
Those are items that they've requested, the amounts that they've requested.
Okay, and is there a possibility of raising any of those amounts?
From them or from our
From
side?
us, our side.
That would be entirely up to the council.
Because I think just $5 per internment for veterans, that's nothing. I just think, $2,100, that's not going to affect anybody's pocketbook.
That would be up to is that something the council wants to put on the parking lot?
I'd like to double it myself.
Councilor
That-
Pease, if I may have a question about that. Do we know what that money is used for? Is it for,
This is the first year that that's been requested. Brian, can you call up the packet? Yeah. He's got the detail file over there.
sorry, Councilor Pease.
That's okay, no. Okay, I thought we were waiting for some information. All right, that's my, thank you.
Councilor Harriman?
Thank you. And just to clarify, with the fireworks for the Liberty Festival, did you say that 10,000 of that is already in our budget?
Yes, it is.
So it would really be an extra 2,500 on top of what's already in our budget?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Excuse me. Deputy Administrator O'Malley.
Yes, in the packet, the request is from $5 to $20 per interment. They use that to honor all the veterans that are buried at the cemeteries. So that's what that money would go towards.
Councilor Pease.
Which goes this, that's why I'm saying $5 is nothing. For our
They asked
veterans-
between $5 and $20, Councilor.
Oh, it's between 5 and 20. So me asking to double it is not outrageous. It's still below what they'd even like to have.
They use that money to install benches, mulching, just to spruce up, and they help assist with the burial costs that aren't covered under state or federal funding.
And that's why I think we should do it. Thank you.
So for the summer fun and films outdoor movie nights, is this, it says LED screen, is this to purchase an LED screen or?
That is my understanding.
I believe Joe Philippon from Summer Fun and Films is here, if you'd like him to
Do you mind
do that.
joining us at the podium, Officer Philippon?
Hi, thank you. No, it's not for the purchase. We already have the LED screen. What I was mentioning in my letter to you is that I think that there are possibilities that we can do. I know that the city, one of the priorities of this council is to have more events and do more things, and I'm just offering that part of an ongoing partnership or relationship with Summer Fun and Films is our ability to provide high-quality AV costs at a pretty reasonable price that would be otherwise unattainable.
Thank you. I've since been corrected. Thank you, Detective Philippon. Further comments from the council at this time about these items? Let's proceed.
So the second page you have is the in-kind services. You will see all of the events listed as well as the total requests for all in-kind services totaling $869.69. That represents regular time, if there is any, but particularly outlining overtime needs for Saturday and Sunday events. And Sunday events, we do let, depending on if the department, what departments are needed, that would be at a double time rate, so people tend to gravitate more towards Saturday. It does include setup costs in some instances. There's chair and table rental from the rec department, so it's a variety of elements that make up this total.
So the only new item on this list would be the main mill event, Saurian Blanc.
Yes, and the LA Arts Street Festival, LA Arts is not new, but the street festival is a new event. And
Oh,
there's-
it's tentative, but it's,
Yes, but it is a new event.
it is also new.
If they
Okay.
move forward, yes.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank
the Soirée en Blanc, or the Evening of White, that's also a new event.
Yes, he had mentioned that, so yeah.
No, thank you, Deputy Administrator O'Malley. Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. And I understand that the LA Arts Street Festival is basically replacing the concerts in the park.
I don't know if that's what they have formally decided yet. I know when we spoke with them during the kind of pre-budget meeting, it was still kind of very loosely being put together, and I'm not sure if more details have been firmed up since then. The information that I shared from LA Arts as part of their budget included some information on that as well.
Okay. And have we done, with those previous concerts in the park, did we provide in-kind services to them?
If they were on the Wednesdays, which is usually lunchtime, typically the only thing that we would provide is the amplification and sound. So it would be probably maybe half this, but that's just an estimate at that point.
Okay. Thank you.
And I take it that these numbers have all been adjusted in light of the current rates?
Correct.
Yes. Councillor McCarthy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me. Do you know what that number was last year?
Yes, I think I do. Just give me 2 seconds. Is it in your, yeah, it's in your thing.
Sorry. Last year's it's gonna be $7,995 more than last year. Last year was $47,874.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor LaChapelle?
Yes. In regards to the Dempsey Challenge, $9,588, I'm assuming that's all in kind. How much money does the Dempsey Challenge raise every year?
Brian, do you have their profit and? They send a lot with this, so we didn't photocopy everything. It's
Certainly,
electronically,
yes.
so.
I didn't want to receive everything.
I don't have that this time. We can get that information. for you,
I'm
Council.
thinking I don't know if the total raise was over $1 million or not, but I can definitely find out. I remember hearing something like that, but I can find out.
I thought it was about $1.5 million,
Okay,
but don't quote me on that.
yeah,
It's over $1 million or better.
yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Scott?
Thank you. Is the Trek Across Maine planning an event downtown again this year, or is there anything planned with that, like the DLA did a couple of years back?
If they are planning one, they haven't reached out to
Right.
get any in-kind services or any cash donations for that.
So is this just for
Street
blocking
security
the streets and the
es-
street security?
exactly.
Okay.
And I was just advised by our communication and marketing director that Dempsey Challenge raised $1.6 million last year.
Okay.
And the Great Falls Balloon Festival is all in kind?
Yes, last year as kind of a getting back, we were a cash sponsor as well.
That's right, yeah.
So we did both, but yes, at this point, right now, we are looking at just the in-kind services.
What was our, off the top of your head, do you remember our cash sponsors?
I want to say it was either 7 or 10.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
it
so
was,
more than 5.
it was higher. I think it was tantamount to what we were doing with the Liberty Festival,
I see.
but I can verify that.
For the Pine Street Block Party, that is that like Public Works or?
That includes Public Works, there is a police presence there as well, and there may be some tables and chairs. It also includes, I think, an entertainment or a amplifier permit.
They're asking for the waiver of the outdoor entertainment permit and the amplification permit as well.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you. Further comments? Councilor Jelinas?
So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the Great Falls Balloon Festival, Administrator Hunter, what I think I hear you saying is about 9,000 of that is overtime. The other 8,000 or whatever, that was just regular hours. I see that in the comments there, but is that about $9,000 worth of overtime? Because the sponsorship is not in that line item.
That's correct. That's
Okay.
just in kind in this. And that covers fire, police, public works for the whole weekend.
Okay. And then for the Liberty Festival, so the Liberty Festival, I just want to make sure I'm understanding it. We see under the cash request for the nonprofits, $12,500, $10,000 already budgeted, so it's a $2,500 increase. So when I look at this line item and I see the $77.55, that's above the $10,000.
Correct.
Okay. And then I just want to make a comment. I mean, I think all these events are really important to this community. I mean, I think as a city council and as a community, these are just such important events for us to be considering. So I want to say that as well as my questions about those line items.
So, and
I would-
I'm sorry, I forget who asked, whether it was Councilor Harriman or Councilor McCarthy. There was one more new event, and that was the YMCA Turkey Trot.
Thank you. Yeah, I found it and circled it.
Yeah, last time I'm going down through there again, too.
Fair enough. And I would like to agree with Councilor Jelinas. I mean, this sheet right here represents summer in Lewiston, and we certainly need to be supporting these events. Further comments from the council? Let's continue then.
So we're going to start on page 78 for the miscellaneous. We've already reviewed the fringe benefit portion and the section on the very first workshop that Heather went over with. So we're going to start private schools on page 78, increase of $14,200 or 12.2%. The increase in the contract with WMTS, consolidated of numbers of school days and fuel. We use an equivalent of 1.5 buses for 175 days. That does about 4 runs per day. St. Dom's pays 100% for their share. Insurances also on page 78, an overall increase of $411,979 or 7.3%. Non-fringe related insurance coverages increased $29,527. We see a decrease in the liability coverage of $1,069, offset by an increase due to the experience rating in the auto insurance of $10,947, property insurance $5,304, fidelity bonds $2,779, and inland marine $11,487. Given the number of replacements, all of these coverages are provided through our membership with MMA and their municipal risk pool. Inland marine coverage insures all of our movable equipment that isn't classified as a vehicle. Retirement is on page 78, an overall increase of $1,095,589 or 25%. This was reviewed on the very first day, very first workshop. Workers' comp and unemployment compensation is on page 79. You'll see a decrease of $79,611 or 8.6%, which this was also reviewed the very first workshop. An additional $250,000 is in the proposed fund balance allocation to reduce the unfunded liability gap that we have for the unemployment. The workers' comp. Dues and donations are on page 79. You'll see a decrease of $2,750 or 3.4%. There's an increase in the MMA dues of $29,700, or actually that's what the dues are. It's an increase of $700 from last year. AvCog is $27,500, which is an increase of $750 from last year. Donations decreased $4,200, which includes $10,000 for the 2023 Liberty Festival, as mentioned earlier. That was increased by $1,400 back in 2017. $7,140, a $840 increase state required cemetery flags on Memorial Day. $4,482 for the Hillside Snowmobile Club, which was flat funded this year. They received the state reimbursement of $6.62 for their registration fee. We're estimating about the same registrations as last year, 667. Any questions before we go on to the next?
I have a quick question here. So, unless I'm like missing something, the 2023 revised budget for donations, 785,000. Am I?
So that includes some of the supplemental appropriations the council did from fund balance, things like the Franco Center, the mill, some of those other pieces go in that line item as well.
Thank you. Councilor Harriman, did you have something?
That was the same thing. I just wanted to be reminded of what that large number was.
Further questions? Councilor Zelenis.
My question goes back to your first line on private schools transportation. When I look at like 2022, 23, 24, you see that gradual climb. I suspect that has to do with price of gas as well as just a better enrollment, perhaps. But you said something about St. Dom's share. Could you repeat that?
They pay 100% of their share.
So there is an agreement, and actually it's gone through a whole history of regulatory and state requirements and lawsuits and things like that, that we do cover the elementary school funding. The high school funding, which is the St. Dom's piece, they pay 100% for that. So the increase is twofold. It's for gasoline as well as the contract for Western Maine transportation, the busing contract.
Okay, thank you.
So they have the dual increases.
Okay.
All set? Tax sharing on page 79 is flat funded. The agreement with Auburn for the Monty Hydro facilities, that is required 17.5% share of the taxes. This was a 50-year agreement which expires around 2035. The value decreased by about $3 million to $36,037,200 in fiscal year 2020. This will be adjusted when we finalize the budget and the tax rate. Salary reserve on page 79 increased $79,032, or 67.4. This was already reviewed again on the first night on the workshop. Enterprise overhead credits $398,650, which is netted against our reserve of $595. Other miscellaneous on page 79 increased $7,910, or 12.8%. Other fees, which covers the audit, the annual audit, $31,905. Miscellaneous services increased $6,390 to fund department specialties charges, citywide training, recruiting efforts, and the ACFR award and the community forums. Miscellaneous. Any questions on that before we move to revenues? Seeing none, revenues start on page 14. There's an overall increase of $1,025,009, or 6.62%. Tax and interest increased $266,854, or 5%. Excise tax increased by $285,206, with the new vehicles coming in available for sales. We're estimating a decrease in interest on delinquent taxes of $18,352, as the state rate for fiscal year 2022 was 6%. 2023, the rate dropped down to 4%. The state is the one who sets the maximum rate due to Title 36. License and permits increased $15,133, or 3%. Increase occurred in food service establishment, peddlers and second-hand dealers, excavation permits, street sidewalk occupancy permits by 9,200, 1,000, and 2,500, which was offset by a decrease in lodge boarding houses of 1,000. Taxi licenses 700, due to the license being eliminated per ordinance voted by the council on April 5th, 2022. K-9 registration fees decreased $500, and other registration fees totaling $651 decrease, which is for boats ATVs and snowmobile registration fees. Intergovernmental increased $554,771, or 7%. The largest increase is in revenue sharing at $300,965. At this time, the city starts the budget. The state has not published their numbers. The state published the projected numbers on March 6, 2023 for the fiscal year 2024 numbers, so there will be a change in this revenue. Increase in general assistance of $194,290, which represents the increase of the expense in social services, of which the revenue is the 70% reimbursed of the expenses from the state of Maine. Lewiston Housing Authority, $20,810 in lieu of taxes. LA Airport property taxes will increase $20,810, which the city receives from City of Auburn around middle of April. That's why you don't see an actual in that column currently. Increase in highway funds, $11,920, following a slight decrease in state exemption reimbursements of $1,291 and snowmobile registrations of $80. I don't know if you want to take a breather, or if you have any questions, or continue.
Councilor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excavation permits, that seems awful low, $22,000. Are we not charging enough? I don't want to deter anybody from digging and building in Lewiston, but it's awful low, isn't it, for all the construction that's been going along?
That's one. Oh, right there.
That's line 4331.
Based upon where we are at in the current policy, that is in line with the current policy. It's a policy that we can certainly bring back to council and see if there's an adjustment needed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
What is the you said for state revenue sharing, they released a figure in March. Did I hear that correctly?
They did March 6th. They posted on their website the what they're proposing for state revenue sharing.
And what was that number for Lewiston?
It is, I have it here somewhere.
$11,897,689.
11.8.
If you round up, it's 11.9.
Yeah, right. Okay, all right. And we are we're planning for 7 million of that.
Currently,
Right. Yes. Okay.
we'll talk more about that later on.
I'm picking that up. All right. Further questions from the council?
What's that? So charge for services decreased $9,519, or 1%. Parking garages are due to be back up and running July 1st, 2023. Due to this, there'll be an
Excuse
increase
me.
of,
What page is that?
oh, sorry.
16.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Parking garages are due back by July 1st, 2023. There's a slight increase of $21,900 across the parking garages. Apartment building collections is increasing $16,500. A smaller increase in parking meters, photocopiers with the police and library, and the sale of ordinance. Parking meters, 2,000, photocopies, 2,000, with police, and photocopies of 1,000 with library, and 1,800 for the sale of ordinance. Fines and fees on page 1617 increased 12,600, or 9%. Parking violations increased 5,000. Code violations increased 4,000. Rental registration fines increased 2,000. This is the new revenue. False alarms, fire increased 1,500. Court fines and fees, 1,200, with a decrease in false alarms for police of 2,000 and re-inspection fees for fire for 100. Interest and rent is on page 17, increase of $201,215, or 19%. Interest rates are increasing, therefore the city is seeing an increase in investment earnings, estimated at $218,000. The city is investing in CDs at a much higher rate than our CDs that are currently maturing. We're seeing rates from 4.5 to 5.3 currently. Increase in rent and armory for $6,000. A decrease in monthly parking of $19,000, with the largest decrease in the Centerville parking garage of $24,000, offset by the increase in the Lincoln parking garage. A decrease in franchise fees of $2,785, resulting from the conversion of customers using various other streaming mods than the Time Warner. Miscellaneous revenues decreased $3,045 or 2%. Removing the revenue budget of sale and timbers of $10,000. Sale of recyclables, $500, a slight decrease of $681 in other reimbursement, with an increase in the marine tower rent of $1,136 due to the inflator impact, and an increase in unclassified of $7,000. Any questions on the rest of the revenues?
Is the rent for the Armory, is that the LA Maples and the Boys and Girls Club?
It's any rentals for any of the rooms.
Okay. But the bulk of it is probably those two. Okay. Councilor Peace?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if I understand this right, and I calculated it right, the municipal garages only brought in like $58,900 this year because of the machines not working.
Correct.
But yet the parking lots brought in $591,000.
Because they're still paying their permits
Still
for the
paying
parking
permit.
lots. Yep,
That's working on. Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
So, Mr. Mayor, at this point in council, we've gone through all of the detail, line by line, and at least explained the fluctuations in the budget. As promised, I left on your place setting the proposed adjustments at this juncture. So just kind of starting at the top, you will see kind of a little grid on the upper right-hand side. That's where we are. That's what we started this budget at. That's the $34.46. The municipal side of the house had a $2.47 increase, or 15%. So that's kind of allows you to track your progress moving through here. So lines 1 through 7 are revenue adjustments. Going down through there, it includes just revised estimates based upon what we're seeing. Mr. Mayor talked about the anticipated revenue sharing estimate of $1.9 million, $1.8 million. The city does not have a habit of budgeting 100% of that estimate. That would not be wise, in my opinion, because that is such a volatile number. Typically, we look at confidence levels, and we usually, in the past, have hovered around 65-ish to about 70, 75-ish confidence level. This flat $2 million is putting us at the upper limit of that confidence level. So that would, unless we need just like a little dabble of money somewhere, you will not see any more proposed revenue sharing adjustments from me on that. Motor vehicle excise tax, again, based upon what we're seeing in the spring this year, with the inventory back up and the leasing back up, we are now seeing some of those higher exchanges being, of value being replaced. General assistance has that negative amount because we are reducing an expenditure down below. So this represents the state's 70% reimbursement of that expenditure reduction. South Park is kind of a spin-off private corporation that is made up of city officials, including myself, I think the city attorney, the public works director, the economic development director, and then the council president serve on those, on the board there. Typically, there has been a cost sharing because all of our staff oversee the operations of South Park. We had reduced that initially going through to kind of reduce our dependency, but with the negotiations of a couple different land deals that are going on this year, this $5,000 bumps it back up to the $35,000 that has been there in the past. Parking violations, based upon estimates, have increased, a proposed increase of $8,000. And then again, based upon what Tracy's seeing with the investment earnings and those CD specials that we're able to take advantage of, we're bumping the investment earnings up by another $35,000. So revenues being adjusted upwards by a total of $2,065,100. Questions on that group of adjustments before I start running through the expenditures? So going down through the expenditures, and these are in order, the same order that your budget is presented in. It's in our, division order from that standpoint. The Sewell grant that you received for the DEI person had a residual additional $2,000. So I am taking that for the offset of the salary. We had
Excuse me, you're saying it was $2,000 more than what we anticipated?
Correct.
Yes, okay, thank you.
The DEI services that were in the budget for programming for $18,500 is going to be combined with the city spirit work, so that's being removed from the budget. In-service training in the city administrator's budget, there was a national conference option that's part of the agreement that, based upon everything else that's going on, that's being removed from the budget. Looking at some advertising plans, the communication and marketing director had planned that reduces that to kind of phase those plans in a little bit more, so we're not, we're walking instead of running, and by phasing that in. Looking at similarly in the city clerk's budget, some small reductions there in travel and miscellaneous services. There's a small reduction in temporary wages for the election. Finance has also reduced their in-service training budget. Salaries, I'm on line 18. That's for the purchasing agent. When he does bids for the lead grant, he is able to charge both his time and the assistant's time, so that reflects that grant credit. He's also offered in-service training reduction. Auditing has reduced their printing by $350. Treasury's looking at a reduction in travel. MIS, I'm on line 22, is reducing their telephone by $244. Anything that you see in blue, I'm recommending pulling into fund balance. So this is kind of taking the second pass through to see if there's anything else that qualifies for fund balance funding.
I'm sorry, you said 22, what are they reducing it by?
$488.
You said 244.
Okay, I'm just double checking.
I'm sorry, 488.
Okay, no,
Too many twos.
thank you.
So on line 23, the first blue line that you're running into is the city clerk has a licensing upgrade for dog licensing. This amount of money is a one-time shot. After that, it reverts back to just the regular maintenance licensing, so it does qualify for fund balance funding, so that is being recommended to be removed. That is a current software they're using, it's just the upgraded cost that's needed. So it's not a new program and service.
Okay. May I ask, though, do you think that's going to help with getting the dog licensing? Because I noticed that dog licensing, what we receive, is down significantly from just a couple of years ago.
I will
Will that
defer to my
help?
I will defer to my city clerk.
Please join us at the podium.
Sure. Hi, Kathy Monteo, City Clerk. This is We work in conjunction with the police department regarding enforcement of dog licensing, and dog licensing is really challenging. We send out letters to remind folks to please license the dogs. So I'm not sure, to be honest, that the software program will actually assist with enhancing. It will help us with sending out the letters on a more regular basis, but that certainly is one of our goals, is to try to increase that, because it certainly is a public safety and public health issue regarding the increase of rabies around the state.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So jumping back to line 24, most of the next chunk are just kind of looking at estimates, looking at historical costs and seeing if there's some wiggle room there. So reducing the repairs to the equipment, and that's in the MIS department. In the assessing department, it's reducing their in-service training by 1,000 as well as their printing. Then you have HR for medical services and labor relations. Both of those are being reduced by a total of $3,500.
Excuse me, what do we mean by, I guess, medical services for HR?
So anytime you do a pre-employment screening,
Oh, right.
you know, drug testing, all of that. On line 29, repairs to buildings, that's at the former Violations Bureau, given the transition down to Mill 7 by the people that are currently in there, and before 911 starts rehabbing the building there. They had some amounts in there for repairs to building that obviously probably will not be needed. During the discussion on general government parking, so the next 30 through 32 are the 3 parking garages that are currently being benefited by the security detail. We talked about piloting that for 1 additional year. So if we are looking at doing that for 1 additional year, it would qualify for fund balance funding. So that's pulling that out. I think given the tendencies that we're seeing right now, it would behoove us to do it, especially as we're taking some of those parking gate and parking equipment back online. It will support that for a variety of different reasons. The next group, 33 through 43, are all in the police department. So it's kind of, it depends on where they budgeted. So I am looking at freezing the 2 additional officers for another year. So that includes their cell phone stipends, which is what you see on line 33. It also includes, if you jump down to 37 and 38, their overtime and regular salaries, as well as their in-service training, and then their department apparel. So that kind of had several different lines associated with that. Line 34 and 35 included transfers for the drug forfeitures for the civil service exams for this year, as well as the incremental difference. This year is a CALIA conference year, so charging that to the drug enforcement account. We did have some revised estimates on overtime. The other piece is looking at moving the project support U workers to the opioid funding that we got. That's still, as I go down through there, I will talk about where that leaves that balance for the current year's receipts, because I know that's going to be important. We had, and you'll see this as a kind of a explanation through a couple different departments that use a lot of gasoline. I think it's here, it's also in fire, and then you see it in Public Works. We have what our bid has kind of almost 5 to 6 months in the current rate, and then it goes to the new rate. And most of the budgets, they were prepared based upon using the new rate for the whole year. So I'm grabbing that incremental difference at the lower rate. And then on line 43, just again, recognizing we're moving to Mill 7, that we don't want to put any unnecessary repairs in the current station. So starting with line 44 and continuing to 48, that is all fire. So we are looking at, the fire chief went through his overtime and crunched some more numbers and provided an additional reduction in overtime of $30,485. We're looking at, he has funding this year, so we're looking at doing the promotional test, or at least funding those this year. You see the gas reduction that I mentioned earlier. He's got a surplus in his public safety supplies this year, so he's going to order some of those items this year. We have a minor adjustment to his repairs to buildings. And then the in-service, the next one, 49, jumps to code and planning. And they have a surplus in their training budget this year that we can tap to cover some of those courses and costs for next year. So that reduces that budget. Starting on line 50 and going all the way down to 70, that's all Public Works. So again, we have a combination of department offers and just looking at different things again. So the first one is in the Public Works Director's in-service training. She has the same option that Tracy and I looked at attending a national conference that we are removing from the budget. Alan went through the Public Works Director, I'm sorry, yes, I'm sure he'll love that. The Purchasing Director went through and revisited some of the larger utility balances, because right now, we now have, I know I noted 3, we just got the 4th one in time to really see what that cost, the additional cost increment on the electricity bills. So we were able to go down through some of the bigger ones and refine that estimate rather substantially. So you will see the first of that is in highways for $9,400. We are trading some chewed up asphalt with pike and getting some sand back, or vice versa. So that provides a savings of about $4,000.
What line was that?
52.
No,
And then the department has offered a reduction in tarring materials of $8,000. Line 54, that's in the street lighting budget, so obviously looking at that electrical cost made it a big difference in that budget as well. We have a department offer in the repairs to singles, as well as looking at phasing in some of their repairs and inventory purchases of $8,000. Likewise, in the miscellaneous services, there was a reduction there as well. The construction material on line 58 is the next fund balance, is looking at moving the light quads into fund balance to replace those. Those have a longer useful life, so those would qualify for that. Looking at the next one is just to combine with historical trends, as well as what's being increased in the construction materials. The other supplies was reduced by $4,000. Again, your utility revision for open spaces of $3,900. The next 2 items for fencing and the Mister, I guess I was right the first time, not the male mister, but the water mister. That's why it didn't come out right. And tree lights, spheres, and lamp replacements all qualify for fund balance options for those amounts. The sharp boxes that were budgeted, we are not only have to replace them, we are adding some, but some we are changing out from plastic to metal, so that qualifies for the opioid funding. Just using the current year funding that we've received already. It doesn't take into consideration what we're projecting to receive for next year, as well as the police project support you vehicle that you had voted on for a supplemental appropriation. That leaves a balance in that fund of $132,566. That's what that number is over under the explanation. So we at least have that.
That balance is after Sharps boxes and the PSY worker or before?
After cars, PSI workers, and sharp boxes.
Thank you.
So the next couple lines are small department offers. The vehicle surcharge, Municipal Garage was including their surcharge that they use for every other department in their number as well. So that removes that surcharge of $31,550. We have another electrical adjustment for city-owned property. As far as looking at, we have a remote door entry system that we are looking at for the Public Works building because training and conference rooms and so forth are on the first floor. So it makes it difficult for people that are coming into the building. This would allow a security to, buzz them in, if you will. So that qualifies for a fund balance of $2,500. We're removing the folding chairs from the training room at this point. We have an adjustment in utilities for the city-owned property, the other city-owned property of $10,325. I mentioned earlier on line 71, we had a reduction to general assistance, and that is in food of $47,000. So that is why we have to do the 70% adjustment in the revenue side of the house. I'm looking at reducing the seasonal booklet that the rec department is printing, and they're looking at funding that through their activities fund versus general fund. So on line 73, given the unclear date that we would be moving in to Mill 7 and not sure when that lease payment will actually be due because we don't have firm numbers, firm dates, an occupancy permit. This allows the first lease payment, if it comes or if it falls in next year, fiscal year, to fund it from fund balance. This was the discussion that we kind of had when we were covering debt service. This would be the first year for that payment. It allows the flexibility that we may not need this payment depending on when we actually finish all the renovations there, move in, and get that occupancy permit. So I'd hate to increase the budget and not need it. Conversely, I want you to be aware there may be some financial obligation that is due next year. So it seemed like this is probably the good way to handle that first year to make sure we kind of have our bases covered both ways.
A quick question about this. So the $734 for that lease payment, so is that half a year or is that a full year?
That's a full year.
That's a full year, but in fact, we won't be...
The lease terms are such that they may not be broken down on a monthly basis. We have not finalized the amortization schedule
I
yet.
see, okay. We're talking about taking occupancy next January?
If everything goes as planned.
Right, okay.
So lines 74 through 78 reflect the freezing of the 2 additional police officers. Those are the fringe benefits associated with those positions. And then the last adjustment is the snapshot for some of the retire health savings account is right as we're publishing the budget. So we don't have the final amount until we've already published it. So based upon the actual snapshot, we were able to take a $34,000 adjustment as well. So that brings total expenditure adjustments up to $1,562,178. So the municipal side of the budget is dropping from 1857, or 56 to 1692, leaving an 83-cent increase or a 5.2% increase. I will share with you that this 5.2% increase is now under the CPI index that we are required to do. You might recall during the budget presentation, I said we were over. The budget would require 5 votes. As we stand now with these adjustments, we would be under that amount, and it would only require 4 votes. So under the new charter, and this is the new charter provision, this is the second budget that we've had under there. Just as a reminder, the municipal tax levy is compared to the preceding fiscal year budget not to exceed the percentage increase of the Consumer Price Index Urban Northeast. And we use the December 31st snapshot of the previous year. So in this particular case, 12/31 of '22, the increase was 6.1%. Again, we're now at 5.2%, so it only requires a 4 vote to approve the budget. So one of the other questions that was raised during some of this discussion, and I like to kind of chat a little bit about, is the tax rate. So, as most of you know, we've talked about being at full value or doing a reval for a number of years now. We started that process when the Great Recession hit. At that point in time, we only did the land valuation at that time. Many municipalities during that time period had just finished a reval. We were halfway through ours and did not take it live, if you will, because most of the results from those revals actually put them above 100% of their valuation. And that is probably not something that a position a municipality wants to be in, especially during a recession. So looking at that, our certified ratio right now is 73%. So we are 73% of the full valuation. So if you look at the tax rate that's proposed with these adjustments and with the adjustments that the school department is proposing, that reduces our tax rate to $31.09. If we were at full value, we would be $22.70. If we were at full value, we would be at $22.70. That is an amount less than the city of Auburn right now. If we were at full value and recognizing the shift and recognizing this type of a tax rate increase, because the single-family homeowner would receive the full benefit of the homestead exemption. Right now, they're only receiving a partial exemption because we are not at full value. By the time they receive the full homestead exemption, even if their property value did increase, and that shift usually does shift from commercial and industrial to residential, this budget would see a $1 increase on their taxes because of the homestead. Right now, obviously, we are not in that position. But it shows you what a difference that revaluation is going to make.
I appreciate that frame of reference.
Additionally, looking at the tax rate for the last 5 years, we have actually decreased the taxes over a 5-year period. The city of Lewiston has decreased our taxes over a 5-year period. In FY19, we were at $28.67. We actually jumped in 2020 to $28.91. Then COVID struck. The city at that time and the council at that time made a conscious decision to reduce the tax rate and at least hold it constant. We received additional valuation after the budget was approved. So we actually went from $28.91 to $28.67 between FY '20 and '21. FY '22, we received a further evaluation, or revaluation and valuation adjustment, and reduced our tax rate further to $28.26. FY '23, we did have a tax rate increase. But as you recall, we were able to temper that rate with additional valuation. The assessor has to go through that process. Usually, by mid-July, we know whether there's an additional valuation that's picked up. Any valuation at that point in time typically goes straight to the tax rate. So we landed on $28.50. So a question may be asked out there, where did we start last year's budget? We started at $32.35. We reduced last year's budget by $3.85. That's almost a 12% reduction from start to finish. Over the last 5 years, Lewiston has decreased 17 cents on our tax rate. And I'd be happy to share the details of those numbers in an email if you would want that. It's an important soundbite. At this point, I would defer to questions.
Okay. So going back to freezing the 2 officers.
Yes.
In police. So where, are we already at that limit, or where are we with how many officers?
They just hired another one, and I believe the chief's behind me. Are we down, we have 3 vacancies left? Or 2?
Walking to the podium.
Okay.
Excuse me, we have one starting on Monday, that'll be number 80 out of 85 that we have as full complement. We have 2 in the pipeline right now that are going through their polygraph, their psychological and such, so that would bring us to 82, leaving us 1 more under the 2 frozen positions.
I see. Okay. So we could hire an additional officer, and yeah, I think I understand now. Okay. Thank you. And I guess one last question, Chief, if you don't mind. So let's say we didn't freeze these positions, would we even be able to hire them within the next fiscal year?
I really think so. I think given the changes we've recently made, we're getting many more applicants than we were for quite some time. I mean, we were down as much as 17 people down at one time. And now to have us down really just 3 positions, if those 2 make it that are in the pipeline right now, is pretty impressive. So I think I'm confident we'd get 2 more if you didn't want to freeze them, but I think we're okay for the time being if you do.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chief.
You're welcome.
Councilor Harriman.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to thank the City Administrator Hunter for the description of how the tax rate and the valuation relate to each other, as well as thank you and the department heads for all of these adjustments. This is really big, so thank you again.
You're welcome.
And so we've basically finished the budget presentation. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No. Councilor Jelinas, thank you.
I would echo Councilor Harriman. Really well done tonight. Thank you, and thank you to the department heads. I want to ask a question about the opioid settlement funding. It's my understanding that if we shift the city expenditures, which total $168,277, if I look at the line item of sharp boxes as well as the PSY workers, then the if those weren't shifted, the opioid funding balance would in fact be 290,843. By shifting those two things off of city expenditures, it brings down the available opioid settlement money to 132. Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct. That's based upon revenues received. We still have not, we will receive annual amounts. So
That's what's in the hopper, that's what's in currently what we have.
that's currently what we have. So, Tracy, do you know what the timeline is when they said they were paying those?
They usually come in a couple times for the year, and I believe an email went out notifying us that we should be seeing another one, probably around May or June.
So we don't know what that amount is, and that is not included in these amounts, that payment.
Okay. But if these shifts were made and taken off of city expenditures and moved over to the opioid funding, then in fact, we'd have 132 currently.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
So at this point, I guess I need direction from the council.
Councilor Harriman?
Thank you. I'm comfortable with this as it is here, realizing we'll hear the school budget on Tuesday. But I like what I'm seeing here on the city side, so thank you again.
Councilor LaChapelle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I said right from the beginning, I would like to go through this again and start making some cuts. You requested that we go through the whole budget before we start talking about cuts. We're done the budget. I'd like to go right back to the beginning and start flipping pages and make some recommendations for some more cuts. I commend the city administrator and their staff for the excellent job on this paper. That cut some of the things that I was suggesting also. Great job. It's in my hand. I just got to turn it over. But at some point, I've been patient. I haven't made any suggestions. I'm just, tell us when we can start flipping back and start going through.
Yeah, fair enough. A couple, if I may, Councilor.
Certainly.
So to Councilor Harriman's point, Tuesday, we're going to hear from Superintendent Langlis, correct?
Yes, and we're also covering the capital. We're planning on covering revisions to the capital. And at that point, typically the capital, which I believe is on 31 through 33 or 30 through 32, those adjustments will just increase or change fund balance. They'll increase or change, the proposed bond. They will not change the tax rate. So that's why I
All right,
kind
so-
of leave that separate, so we can focus just on the tax rate first and then button up the capital side.
All right, so we will talk about capital next Tuesday, April 11th.
Yes.
Along with hearing the presentation from Superintendent Langlis.
That's correct.
At this point, since we're pretty much depending on how late councilors would like to be here this evening, what I am suggesting at this very moment is that perhaps we wrap up this evening, hear the presentation from the superintendent and capital, and then on Thursday's workshop, April 13th, councilors can bring their suggestions, and we will still have, as the public can see, we still have quite a few meetings to then go through everything that councilors would like to go through. How does that sound to everyone?
Just tell me the date, and I'll be there.
I am proposing at this time that we talk about start the general discussion on the budget on April 13th, Thursday. Councilor Scott.
So two things. So what we see here that you presented as under the school, that is what the superintendent's going to present to us. That is exactly what was voted on Monday evening. So, and just a reminder that the superintendent will give the bottom line, but it is the purview of the school committee to make all decisions on to where the money is spent. I just want to give that reminder out there that that is the way that that works. So we can have that discussion about if you want to lower that, but just a reminder that, it's the school committee that's going to make the decision as to where those funds will be spent at the school committee level. As far as general discussion, what time is it now?
7:08?
I mean, I think we can start some now, couldn't we? I mean, I'm of the opinion that, we have to start letting our city administrator know where we're at on some of this. I don't think we should be waiting any longer. I mean, I've got a couple of things that I think that we should be adding to the parking list. We added more to the parking list last year. We really haven't done any of that yet this year, other than just listen to stuff. And I'm ready to start. Let's give her some things to work with so that we're not waiting. If we wait till next Thursday, after the superintendent, and then the following week, what if there's a lot of adjustments to be made? I'd like to give them a little more time to start working on that, if that's possible. So, I mean, we don't maybe have to go all of us tonight and do all of that, but we should definitely be starting it. I don't think we wait another night. I mean, it's still early. That's my personal opinion.
Further thoughts from the council? Councilor McCarthy.
So on Tuesday, you're gonna propose cuts to the CIP, LCIP, or
And-
adjustments?
They would be moving things around as well as deferments.
Is it possible to get that ahead of time? Or do you not want to give it to us ahead of time?
I can give it to you ahead of time.
I would just like to compare your list to my list, so I'm more prepared for Tuesday night.
I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
It may be going out Monday.
Monday's fine.
Okay.
I'm fine with Tuesday morning's fine. But I
Yeah,
would just
I-
like a couple hours to go through it and cross off my list what you've already proposed, so that we're not,
I'm about 80% there. I had some straggler emails that came in, so I may be able to get it out, but just to kind of flush through it one more time would be great. The other thing that I did want to bring up, and we discussed it today, and I'll revisit this next Tuesday, is the bond limitation has done a wonderful job on reducing debt, and that was his intended purpose. There was no consideration when it was initially formulated to adjust for inflation. So when you keep reducing, at some point, you are either going to reduce it where you're only going to qualify for street paving at some point, if that, and/or you're constantly going to have a supermajority to vote to go over the limit. Or the third thing is we start recognizing some inflationary cost to that.
well, the last 2 years, isn't it true the last 2 years we went over that limit?
That's correct.
We went over even the 100%. I mean, the
Correct.
limit is 80%. The last 2 years, we went significantly over the,
Correct. That's why I want to do it in a comparison to because we have not ever considered an inflationary component.
Yeah,
So I just don't know what that looks like. I don't know if it's 100% is adequate. I don't know, but I at least wanted to go through that exercise.
right, because it isn't realistic to believe that we can stick with the 80% into perpetuity, or we just won't function as a city, but it's there as a guideline.
It's a good governor.
If memory serves me, our outstanding balance, bonded balance, or whatever you want to call it, is still over the, what financial people would like to see a city of our size? Isn't that?
As they refer to it, it is high but manageable.
But it is high.
It is high but manageable. We are not losing points on our rating because of it, but they do comment that.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor LaChapelle.
Thank you. Little things like, just refresh my memory, page 18, the new programs and service requests. Is any of that in the budget right now?
None of it is in the budget right now, and I'm not recommending, based upon the cuts that are being made, to put any new programs and service in the budget.
So forget page 18.
Forget page 18.
That's, took care of half of my yellow stuff. So, I tend to agree with both the mayor and our council president. I think we can work on a couple pages, even if we got to page 25, which page 25 and 26, 27, 28, 29, right up to, yeah, right in that area, shouldn't take a whole lot of time, and that really talks about a lot of the stuff that's previous. I'm just sharing that, folks. If we can put an 8 o'clock stop, drop dead, say 8 o'clock, next 45 minutes, let's bang out something, and at 8 o'clock we stop. We're here.
Fair.
Yes, I'll say.
Fair enough, and to be completely transparent, I do not have any dinner reservations, so. I am fine with, kind of setting a self-imposed limit of 8 o'clock tonight, and then according to the schedule, Administrator Hunter, we would not have any time on Tuesday to talk about, we would then continue this conversation on Thursday, is that correct?
Depending on what time we get done the capital and the school presentation,
Those are
there
the
may
only
be
two
time.
things? Those are the only two things. that
Those are
night,
the
right?
only two things.
I think we start at 5:30 that night.
Well,
No, we start at 6 that night. The 5:30 is only when he does his initial presentation. That's at their place. He's coming here to do the presentation on Tuesday, so that's a 6 o'clock start time.
I would say based on.
Actually, there is a executive session, so no, we would not be able to do anything on this on Tuesday.
I'm sorry, an executive session when on Tuesday?
It's going to be after the presentations in the workshop.
So between 6 and 7, we have a presentation, the Capitol, and an executive session.
No, it's after.
Tuesdays
Workshop.
is a workshop only night.
Oh, and right, yeah, okay, thank you.
I know, you had me second guessing there for a second.
We just had a council meeting. Thank you. Okay, I guess, who first would like to speak?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor
And I
LaChapelle.
guess I don't have a whole litany of things, well, I do, but I guess I wanted to start on like page 25. So page 25, just going right down, the Division 4113, City Administration. I know some of that has changed, sure. The Director of Equity and Diversity and Inclusion, I know we got an $80,000 Sewell grant, and I also know that the school department just has to replace their person. I just question whether there is a need for 2 of those positions in the city of Lewiston. One of the recommendations would be that we eliminate one of the positions, eliminate this position, transfer the $80,000 over to the school department or whatever, and we share that position within the city of Lewiston, one from the school department, and we shared other positions in the city. Why not that position? That's one of my thoughts.
Sorry, if I may, Councilor.
Certainly.
So I guess what would be the council's thought process on, do we, once a change is proposed, should we talk about that change? And then,
more sense.
yeah, just so we can keep everything,
Certainly.
yeah. I guess the thoughts on that change. Councilor McCarthy.
I concur with Councilor LaChapelle. In fact, I sent out an email today to that very effect.
Saw that.
Okay. I just think that in a tight budget year, I know where I worked, last in, first out, as far as if you have to make cuts, and where the position with the school department is already open, it doesn't affect anyone's livelihood to make this kind of change, so it's a good opportunity. I think that adding 2 positions to cover that for our city right out of the gate was not the right thing to do, and I think cutting it back to one and having that person shared between the school and the city of Lewiston, I think should be doable. It's, it's the same topic, it's just spread out more. But that's my thought.
Councillor Jelinas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would not be okay supporting a recommendation like that. I think that, well, first of all, we don't really, as city council, talk about programmatic changes at the school level. That's not of our purview, I understand that. So we're really just talking about the city position here. And when I think about our community, and I think about the makeup of our community, and I think about the work that's been done that I see going on day in and day out in our public schools as well as in our city, I understand first in, first out, but if the last person we hired was a school principal, or the last person we hired was a police officer, it doesn't really make sense to say, well, you're, last in, so you're first out. I think this is a real high priority for our community. And I think that we've done, not just in this term, but certainly in my first term, just a tremendous amount of work within the area of DEI. So I personally could not support a recommendation like that.
I think, I can't get behind this either. I think the positions, while certainly the SCL position of the school, a lot of it does focus on equity. They're two very completely different positions. And, in a city of our size and given our staff, we likely need more than just one person for the city, and for sure we need more than just one person for the school department. And so I really can't see combining them both. Councilor Harriman?
Thank you. To some of what the mayor said, I believe, so we have a director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I believe the school department has a social emotional learning coordinator. Not really the same thing. And I know that that Superintendent Langlis stressed that social emotional learning was one of the high priorities that was brought to him from school staff that really needs to be focused on this year. So, and I believe the school has, I think they're close to 1,000 staff members, something like that. So I don't see how one person could do both of those jobs, especially given the number of staff members and the differences in the jobs. They're not even the same title, and they do very different things. So I also cannot support this.
Sorry, 1 second, councilors. Administrator Hunter, when you replied to Councilor McCarthy's email, you CC'd the superintendent. Have we heard from him?
No, I'm sure he'll speak on it Tuesday based upon some feedback that I'm getting. I think he's looking at kind of researching what our DEI person does as well as what their position did and kind of compared the job descriptions from that standpoint.
Thank you. Councilor Scott?
Thank you. So, unfortunately, I did not get to see that email this afternoon. I was out of town most of the day, so I didn't see any conversation that happened around that. I will let you know that the position that Mrs. Hall held at the school department was more in effect for the social emotional learning. There was some equity and diversity work that she did with staff members and in that direction, but I would foresee this as being two completely different positions. I'm not sure how this would work, to be honest with you, and I would have concerns about doing something without knowing how this would work. So I would definitely want to hear from the superintendent and hear what the job description is and the needs that we have in our community. I will say that, what Director Hugh does, she's being asked to travel throughout the state to do some of the work that she's doing because she's doing really good work. And it is something that is happening throughout our state. And I would be I wouldn't be in favor of not having that position in our community, not with what we have as a community and what the demographics of our community are. I think this is a very important work, and I support it, and I'm thankful that we got the Sewell grant to help support that work. And that's where I sit right now, but I definitely would want to hear from the superintendent on that.
Counselor Pease.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple of things on that. How many, could I use, classify it as, how many claims have we had prior to having the DI position?
Claims,
Suits against the city for any particular reason?
we went through that, I'd have to go back, I don't want to state the wrong number, but I can bring that back or send it out to the city council.
And what it cost us?
Yep.
Thank you.
Counselor Clement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When this first came up last term, I was against the position. I'm still against the position. I would concur with Councilors LaChapelle and McCarthy. Of late, there has been a trend that has started. Our military went whole hog into DEI, CRT, and everything. They had more forced classes on pronouns. They're backing off that now. Major corporations that were funding positions at $240,000, $275,000 are backing away. So I think it bears looking at. I will concur with what the council president had to say. I'd like to hear from the superintendent. I'm not saying one way or the other that it can be done. I'm not sure. But if there's a way of doing it, then I think it's something we should look at. To sit back and say we've never done it like that or it can't be done is foolhardy. So let's look at what the thing is, and I think that there's a major savings right there above and beyond what we've done tonight. Communications that I've gotten from constituents, and I think some of them have gone through the entire council as to what is going to cause the pitchforks to be carried to City Hall, anything over $30. I think we can defend something reasonable above that, knowing that the next year probably is going to be bad as well. But this is one area, it's the first item we've discussed, and I concur. I think we can do away with that. Let's see if we can't somehow, cooperation is a big thing between departments. In our meetings we've had this year, we've talked about that. Let's see if we can't move it in this particular area. Thank you.
Counselor LaChapelle.
Thank you. Might I suggest we just put that on the parking list, wait until after we hear from the superintendent, and then we can carry on this conversation on Thursday and see where we're going on that position. Is that
Yes, thank you,
enough.
Counselor LaChapelle. Counselor McCarthy, did you have anything? Counselor Jelinas,
Just
did you
one
want to
final-
weigh in again?
Just one final question. I like the idea of putting it in the parking lot, Councilor LaChapelle. But just so I'm clear, if in fact we're looking at this line item, we're actually looking at $5,839. Am I correct, Administrator?
You're actually looking at, because there was an additional 2,000, so you're looking at $3,800 plus fringe.
Thank you.
What, Counselors, I'm sorry, anything further, Counselor
I
Jelinas?
just want to be clear on that. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Counselor McCarthy.
But we're also looking at cutting $85,000 from the school budget. Plus,
This isn't.
if we share this position, the school department can cut the $85,000 plus fringe benefits, correct?
That would be the school committee's purview.
Correct, but that's what would happen if realistically, if you eliminate a position.
Not necessarily.
Counselors,
Okay.
Counselors, please.
I'm not gonna get
Sorry. Sorry, no, I'm not preventing you from speaking. I'm just making sure only one counselor is speaking at a
I just don't
time.
want to get into an argument, so I'll just drop it for now.
Okay. Counselor Scott.
So just for clarification, and it's not, I don't want to get in an argument either, Bob. You can suggest that the school committee cut some money from the bottom line, but you cannot make a suggestion as to where the school committee spends the money. So if the school committee decides that they want an SEL director, then they're going to have an SEL director whether you cut the budget or not. I just want to clarify that you can give that bottom number that you suggest for the overall budget, but you can't suggest where they're going to put the money. And one more question, if I might. So, and I just want a little bit of clarification on this, because Councilor Clement just said, are you suggesting that we are not going to go anything above $30 for the mill rate, that's
I'm
what you're
telling you, that's
thinking?
what I'm hearing from constituents.
So that means we'd
We're-
still
we're
have to
still
cut.
working on it.
Yeah, but we'd still have to cut $1.09 from the
But
budget.
we don't have to cut anything. We could raise it $5. I mean, we're
Right,
still
but I'm
working
just
on it.
thinking, just trying to think about where we might be located when we continue this conversation, putting stuff on the parking list, where we might be going, because I think it's important that we're all thinking in the same, as much as we can, the same direction, so we're working together on this. That's all. I just was wondering if that's what we're thinking.
If it's a help, if I could, Mr. Mayor, to
Please
reduce,
continue, Administrator.
to reduce it another $1.09 between the city and the school, because obviously the county budget is locked in and it's at 6 cents. That would be $2,413,805.
Thank you for that.
Can you say that
any-
number one more time? I'm sorry.
$2,413,805 gets us to $30 flat.
Anything further, Councillor Scott?
Oh, thank you.
Councillor LaChapelle?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand that it is not within our preview for the city council to tell the school committee where to cut from. The bottom line is, it comes from the same damn pair of pants. Whether I take the money out of the left pocket or the right pocket, it still comes out of the city of Lewiston. And we have the entire city to look at, and I'm just plain tired of this territorial stuff, tried to reframe it, with the school committee. I respect what they're doing. They've got a very tough job, but so do we. And we have to start looking at not only the kids, we have to start looking at the senior citizens in our city and the middle-class families, everybody. We have to look at everybody. So some tough decisions are going to have to come. And to say that we don't need 2 positions, and I haven't even gotten further down on the page, because there are other positions that I'd like to be looking at also. And this is not going to be fun, and it is not easy. I had the conversation with the city administrator. I do not wish I had her job, or the deputy city administrator, or Tracy. I'm sorry you came. So that's, it's tough. It's not going to be easy.
I'm glad you're here, Director Roy.
Yes, I'm glad she's here also, but this is not going to be easy. And if we can all just take our attitudes off, leave it at the door, and start working together, school committee and city council, instead of calling each other's names and saying, you can't tell me what to do, it's not time to come in yet. You know, this is crap. And I understand what the rules are. So if we come up and we suggest that they cut $80,000 from the budget, but we're going to give you $80,000 in grant, why wouldn't that, it defies logic why they wouldn't even consider that. So, yes, I will withhold before I get going.
Thank you, Councillor LaChapelle.
Thank you.
Councillor Clement?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Councillor Scott, too many numbers floating up here. To her comment, I don't mean to say that we've got to go to $30. I think we could bring it down to 31 even and use that as a starting point for the rest of our discussions. We may go up or down from there. I don't know that 30 is going to be attainable, but boy, I'll tell you, people in my constituency nobody has said, go for it. And I won't raise any hackles about which side, but they're talking about the way the budget stands now. We've not presented anything towards it, and we're over $30. So, yeah, it's going to be difficult, but if we could, I wouldn't think we could find 9 cents, particularly if we split it somehow between the 2 entities. We could come up with 9 cents to bring us down to 31, and that becomes a starting point for us. Just an idea. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Harriman?
Thank you. I just want to clarify for the public that our city charter separates powers into different bodies, and we have the public elects city council and the mayor to oversee city business. The same public elects the school committee to oversee the school, and our charter separates those powers out. So the city council can set the bottom line budget for the school, but we do not set the individual line items. just to make that clear to everyone. Thanks.
So I believe we are putting this suggestion into the parking lot, and we will revisit it after we hear from Superintendent Langlis. Councilor LaChapelle?
Thank you. I had one quick question in Division 4153, Accounting and Auditing. Sorry, Director Roy. Looks like we have 5 auditors that are there, accountants, excuse me.
We have different positions. So the senior auditor does all of the reconciliations of the bank, to do the dual controls from the tax office. We have to make sure our cash is not missing or misapplied, and does like the purchase orders. We have a grant accountant, which you see the credit from CDBG in that department. That grant accountant does all of the financial pieces of draws, keeping track of grants, submissions, budgets within that. And then we have another accountant who does the accounts payable and the general billing. And then we have another accountant, you'll see the division enterprise credit. She does all of the work for water and sewer. She just did the PUC report. She does she helps with the bills, and she does the reconciliations. She helped on the budget. And then we have another staff accountant who does payroll, and we'll be doing W-2. She's new to this. That's why this line item went down, because we have 2 new people in that, so older, longer, I should say, employment left, and we have 2 new individuals in that. So she does payroll, she'll be doing the W-2, she reconciles all of the balance sheet accounts that go with the benefits for payroll. So they're not doing all the same job, they're doing multiple jobs.
So we don't have a payroll company, we just do payroll in-house?
Correct, we do our own payroll.
We explored a payroll company many, many years ago, and with our union environment and the different shifts and the different scheduling, nobody would even bid on it.
Okay.
Well,
Quick question.
are we talking about that right now?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Councilor Clement.
Quick question, you have one accountant that does water and sewer?
Correct. She helps out with the billing piece.
Any of that charged to water and sewer divisions?
Yes, yes, that credit to enterprise right down below that you see of 8526.
Thank you.
That's charged to water, sewer, and stormwater.
Thank you.
Councilor LaChapelle?
And please, anybody jump in if they find any other division. When I turned the page, I just jumped over to 26, and police department was already answered. We were going to suggest freezing a couple of the positions. I'd like to put on the parking list salaries for the police chief and deputy chief. Just looking at that. I was hopping right over to the next page on the fire department, and that's why I figured this would go fairly quick.
What page are you on now? Sorry, Councilor.
28, 29,
Okay, thank you.
and with the, and actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump all the way over to page 30. And I know we have the fire chief here. We just recently had a retirement from a fire inspector. It was only a few years ago that we jumped from 2 to 3 fire inspectors. Where we're not actually cutting a position, well, we're not cutting a person, I suggest moving back down to the 2 positions for the fire department, for the fire inspection, just eliminating one of those spots.
Can we discuss that?
Yes.
Or, sorry, anything further, but I want to stop and discuss that for a second.
Yes.
We have the fire chief here. Chief Karen, do you mind coming to the podium and, I guess explain the ramifications of that proposal?
Sure. So with the rental registration program that was put in place a few years ago, a fire inspector position was funded as part of the rental registration program to address the housing stock or the poor condition of the housing, and to and have enhanced inspections so we can hold the property owners accountable and get them to fix their properties to make them more livable.
Would it be a fair question to say that if you have 1/3 less inspectors, we will have 1/3 less inspections?
Well, they do
Or
other.
are there other factors involved?
They do other work other than inspections. They do citizen complaints, business licenses, plans reviews. They do the whole part of it, public education.
I guess to that question, so if we only had 2 out of the 3, what wouldn't get done or what would need to change?
The inspection program would suffer. We don't have people, he does something, right? He does inspection. That third position, that inspector that was funded through rental registration program, does building inspection, tenement inspections all day. That's what he does.
Thank you. Councillor Scott?
Thank you. Is it just the fire department that does inspections of buildings, or are there any other departments that help with that? Does Public Works or the police department, does anybody else help with inspecting of these buildings?
So the code
Code?
So the code enforcement department does inspections, but no, they don't do fire inspections. So I would have to defer that to the director of code and planning, what his staff does.
Correct. And when we're talking about inspections, we're talking about fire inspections.
That's correct. Life
Right.
safety inspections.
Correct. Okay. Councillor,
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor LaChapelle.
Thank you. When I was on the Housing Committee when it first started, and I was there, they were trying to incorporate, when one department went in, even though it's not, if you see an electrical wire hanging down, you might be fire department, you know they're blocked. It's more towards code. If they see the back door has all kinds of trash blocking it, they know they address it. So there are multiple departments going in, inspecting the buildings. One of the questions I have, is the rental registration totally paying for a position?
No.
Okay. How much revenue are we deriving from the rental registration?
Right now, it's not meant to be a penalty unless you do not participate.
Correct.
So right now, for the first year, we've had about $22,000 in cash come in. We have billing for more than that. We attribute that to the 1 full year of startup. Kathy just shared with us and Kathy, jump up on correcting my numbers, $1,000, 1,000 people participating. I think we have 18 that have not complied for this second full year.
That's correct. And just a reminder, the registration, there is no registration fee.
I knew that.
Okay, so there is no regular income from this program other than the late fines for folks if they fail to register in the timely basis based upon the ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, on the same tone, continue. Director Hediger is here. Director Hediger, back 3 years ago, you were understaffed in your department, and you did not have enough people to go inspect buildings. What is your staff level now today?
Altogether, there's basically 10 people in planning and code enforcement, 2 administrative assistants, 2 planners, 2 building inspectors, 3 code officers. One of those code officers splits their time doing sanitation inspections, basically any licensed establishment.
So it is fair to say that you have more staff today than you did 2 years ago?
Yes.
Okay. So that was part of the dilemma. I believe you were at every one of those meetings also.
I was.
Yes, I remember seeing you. So we've increased in code enforcement, we've increased with the fire department. I'm not saying that they're bad things, that's great, but we're looking at a budget, we have to start looking at cuts. The position's open right now. I see, we're not having to remove somebody from a position. I don't want to lay somebody off, I don't want to do that. It's just an open position. And, Chief, have they hired that position yet, or is it still?
I have not filled it yet. I've advertised and done some interviews.
Okay, thank you. So that's just my recommendation.
If I may, Councilor? So, I guess, would it be possible for, I don't think we need a 50-page report, Chief, but could you, kind of have a summary of how things might change, a written summary about if we went from 3 to 2?
Sure.
Okay. Now, I guess, perhaps also in discussion with the remaining 2.
Yeah, so over the past few years, I've also had some vacancies due to sick leave, family leave, that sort of thing. So for the last few years, I really haven't had 3 inspectors working all the time. There's been periods where, one has been out for extended periods of time, one or the other.
Understood. Thank you. Councilor Scott?
Thank you. So I guess I'm sort of thinking along the same lines as you here a little bit. And my thought process here with this is, I don't either want to take anybody's job away. That's not at all what I want to do. But what I would like to know is, with all of these inspections going on, where are we at with our building inspections? Are they being done? And are we duplicating some work here? If there's a way that, if you have a code enforcement officer from planning and code, I would imagine that they saw, like what you said, a blocked door, that they're telling the fire department, and that could help. They should be working together, I would think, right? So I say put it on the parking list, and let's have further discussion on that and get some more information if we can on that particular piece, because I want to hear that conversation too.
Councilor Peace, did you want to weigh in?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This question, I guess, is more for Director Hediker.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a chance to get up to the podium. Now, doesn't code enforcement, code officers, don't they enforce the Boca Code and the Life Safety 101?
It's no longer Boca, it's MUBEC. It's a state building code. It applies to all communities with over 4,000 people. But yes, that's the equivalent to Boca. And as far as NFPA, not really. There are aspects of the building code that refer to NFPA, which is what the chief's crew enforces. But ultimately, that set of ordinances and codes falls to the fire department. There is some duplication. If we see a blocked exit or something and we're in a building, we're not necessarily going to wait for the fire department to come and call up. At the same time, we work incredibly close with them. It's rare that there's a day that we're not involved with one of Mark's employees on the inspection side.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because when I was in code enforcement, that's what we did. We'd inspect the building. We saw issues. We'd contact the fire department and say, look, there's an issue here. We tried to contact the owner. Can you give us a hand trying to figure out how we can correct it? So, yeah, there is a little overlap. But needing another position, I'm not sure about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any further about the fire inspector? Councilor LaChapelle, did you have something else?
Yes, in lieu of the time, I'm going to pass on a couple of the other issues. I'm talking about cuts, now I want to talk about adding something to it. And this should be on the parking list. I'm really concerned on the whole Martell School situation. And every place I go, I swear I have a line of senior citizens following me in the grocery store and saying, and the stories that I'm hearing from them is just horrible. And they can't afford, they've worked in the mills all their life and worked in town and they can't afford their apartment. I just had one of them, I was at breakfast, Councilor Pease was with me and the lady came up and says, can they jump my rent $700 a month? I can't afford to stay here anymore. And this lady is 80, 85, her husband's 90, something like that, and they just can't afford to stay. So I'm going around the mountain for a second. I don't want to wait for anybody to come back. I say that we look at the Martell School about raising it ourselves, just tearing the whole blessed thing down, which they're talking to 300,000. This can be used from fund balance or something to that effect. Get the land prepared, and then open it up to anybody, put it out to bid, open it up to anybody that can come to the table with some senior subsidized housing, and we give them the land. That's like $1 million gift. I think that's showing how, I feel that's showing that the city cares about our senior citizens and the plight that they're in. We're spending $30 million in the tree streets. We're spending a lot of money in different places. I would like to support our seniors. And by tearing down the building, we're going to have $300,000, $400,000 out of pocket, the value of the land, put it back, put it on the tax rolls, just give it to whoever can put it, and put it on the tax roll. So that's just a quick overview. If we can put it on the parking list and talk about that, that's something that I'd like to review and near and dear to my heart.
Thank you, Councilor LaChapelle. I guess my first thought is I'd like to remind the council that we agreed to hear the proposal from Lewiston Housing. Administrator Hunter, is that still for the 18th?
Yes.
And so that is approximately 12 days away. So I would encourage the council to in some sense, keep that promise and then hear their proposal and then go from there.
I suggested the parking lot list. I didn't suggest a meeting tonight, right now. Just put
I
it on the
understand.
parking lot list, and we can talk about it in a couple weeks.
Fair
And
enough.
we know how, well, yes.
Thank you. And I just want to take a moment to address the council here. I realize that there's going to be, some discussion going forward, and I would encourage us to, conduct these discussions in a calm as manner as possible. You have my commitment that everyone who wants to say something will. We'll meet till 1 a.m. if we have to. We'll sleep in that day, and commit to hearing everyone, addressing their hearing ideas, and then hearing people's thoughts on those ideas. Yeah, that's my commitment to you. I just want to make sure that we conduct ourselves appropriately. I would appreciate that. And while we certainly have differing views among the table here as to what is the best way forward, there's no doubt in my mind that all of us, care equally about Lewiston, and I appreciate that. Any further thoughts from the council at this time before we possibly wrap up 9 minutes early? Administrator Hunter, Director Roy, do you have anything for us?
Nope.
We will see everyone back here, Tuesday at what time?
Tuesday at 6 o'clock.
Tuesday at 6, which is not a council meeting, yes.
Correct.
Thank you so much. Good night, Lewiston.